Hey everyone, happy Friday the 13th this week, and a little update. I'm heading out to Zach Bagans Museum in the morning. I'm excited.
Of occult artifacts been assembled under one roof, and their combined energy has produced unexplained sightings, hauntings.
I felt like if someone just grabbed my lungs and just squeezed, I really felt possessed.
Occurrences.
Hey everyone, so I'm grabbing some coffee and I'm getting back on the road and I'm leaving Vegas. Another experience that happened in Zach's museum was after I did the spirit box session with that doll. So anyone who is on this journey with me, or supports my work and research, knows about my abilities, that I can see angels, that I've seen demons, so the darkest, most evil entity that I felt, sensed, and picked up on was in the it was the torture room. And oh man, that room was so
Good evening. Hope everyone's doing good tonight. I would like to elucidate the experiences that I had in regards to the Zak Bagans Museum, the Haunted Museum. So I'm going to go ahead and just tell you everything. Story time. To start off with, I'd like to state a thought. I never approach these situations in a perfunctory way. There's a lot involved, especially when you know that you're going to be in the presence of demons. It's very important to know what you're dealing with, what you're risking, what you're getting involved with, and the fact that you are most likely going to have some kind of experience or another eventually, whether it be before, during, or after in the later future, which is quite common. Zak's museum was very scintillating to me. I feel that Zak's museum is the quintessential paranormal museum, I would say. Okay, so here we go. It was a Monday that I decided to begin taking care of the things I needed to take care of, as I usually do before taking a trip, getting on the road, heading there, all of that good stuff. There's a lot that I have to take care of before I get on the road. I have to make sure that my home is taken care of, my belongings are packed, secure, safe, financial situations are regarded. So one of my number one priorities is to ensure that my vehicle is taken care of properly prior to leaving. So I think it was like a Tuesday. Yeah, it was a Tuesday. I text my buddy who owns an auto shop in Austin, Texas. So it's about 6 in the morning. I text them. I'm like, hey, I need to take care of this. I got to go to Vegas tomorrow. And I hadn't really decided for sure if I was going to go yet because I wanted to make sure everything was situated with my truck because I had to have some parts brought in to fix some things on it. So I head over to the auto shop and I'm there for maybe, 5 hours. So several hours go by and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make a decision to head to the Haunted Museum until I know that my truck and everything is situated. So after several hours of being up there, I get everything taken care of, and at that point at the very end, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. So I got a long list of stuff to get done, and I want to leave at 4:30 in the morning. But right before I left the auto shop, I felt a very tight, extreme pain in my chest when I breathed in. And then I kind of felt it seep into my back a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this is odd, maybe I shouldn't go on the trip. And so at this point I go and I'm like, okay, well, I just need to get my stuff done. Maybe it's just a pulled muscle or something. Although I was sitting most of the time, so I'm not sure why this would happen. As the day progresses, or rather the evening and the night, I can barely lift my arms and my chest. Anytime I move, it hurts. And if I would lay on my side with my cat or something, I would feel extreme pain, and it was very difficult to move. And this just kept escalating. So at which point I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't go in the morning. Maybe this is not what I need to do. Maybe this, I don't even know. So I'm like, okay, I relax, I do a little work, eventually I'm like, I'm ready for bed, and at this point I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait until the morning to see how I feel in my chest and my back and make sure I can move to where I'm able to take the drive. I mean, it was that bad. It was really, really excruciating at some points, and I didn't like it. So the next morning, I get up around 4, and I leave. I pack my last bag, and I pack my equipment, And, I get out the door, I get on the road, and, I start heading to Nevada, Las Vegas. Okay. So on the way to Vegas, the pain kind of came on and off and felt really deep in my back right here. It felt like something was reaching in, grabbing my bone and squeezing it, and it was really, really painful. So I wasn't happy. I was a little stressed. I was having some other pains as well. After hours of prayer and all these different things that I did while I was driving for further protection, more in-depth protection, it was at night, and I'm getting very close to, I think it was New Mexico. And all of a sudden, I see a vision. And I saw a male sitting in my back seat, behind my passenger seat in my truck. And, I see him, and I look in the rearview mirror, and I see something there. And I'm like, oh, dear. I'm not familiar with this entity. It is not the ones that are usually with me. And they could be the angels who are showing me this. And so I focus, and I say, who are you? And he goes like this and looks at me. And then I literally see these horns morph on his head. I shit you not. This is what I saw. And his skin turned brown and started to become like, that's kind of what it looked like. It was just freaky. And so I was like, I don't like this. I don't like what you're showing me. You're obviously not a spirit that needs help. You need to leave. And I hadn't seen or experienced him after that until the way back home. So this was twice in my truck that I experienced this entity. And I don't know why. I don't know if... I know in some cases when we are heading to a haunted location or something regarding any kind of demonic hauntings or demonic attachments, especially people with abilities, they will have visions prior, during, and after. And this is exactly what happened. I did not like this thing. And he had some kind of weird necklace on. I didn't know, and there was like these burns of, I couldn't make out what it was. It looked like an occult sign, possibly, because I do study those. And it was something, it was evil. I don't think it was good. And it was just like engraved right here in the middle of his chest. It looked like it was burnt in, and there was like black oozing. There was something black oozing out of it a little bit, and it wasn't blood. It was something else. So I didn't really like that entity too much. Seeing those kind of things, I typically sense right away if they're good or evil, and I did. That's exactly what happened, and I don't know if I don't think it was good. The drive is actually about 20 hours, but if you count all the stops and things like that, it can take quite some time. Plus, I drove around for a good 45 minutes trying to find a hotel that night. And I had finally found one, and I unload my things. I'm having a hard time getting to sleep. The people are really loud outside. The casinos are really bright, which I didn't go into any of those. I don't like to gamble. So I finally get to sleep, I'd say around like 3 in the morning, Las Vegas time, which the time zone difference is different than Texas. So I'm kind of used to that, driving across the states all the time, all the different time zone changes. So I get up the next morning, and, pretty bright and early. The museum opened at 1, so I was like, okay, I still haven't eaten, and I just, I was pretty tired. I needed to get dressed, and I had taken a bath the night before, so I decided to take one more shower to just kind of wake up. And I get dressed, and I go to the stratosphere, and it was, it was you know, it was... So over towards the left side of the screen, you will see a spirit shoot from the left side of the screen towards me. This happens quite often, and I have seen angels in the form of this before. I have also seen ghosts in this form. I have also seen demonic activity in this form. Sometimes it can be difficult to differentiate what exactly it is. I am most certainly a haunted person, and this kind of activity takes place around me on a daily basis. Nothing to fear. It's really quite normal. It was really enthralling, I would say, to say the least. There are a few moments that are a little, too much. Then I head over to the museum and I do my session. Now, on the drive there, I was praying nonstop. I was talking to my protector, the angels in the eight, and, you know, really trying to make sure that I was protected and blessed, and asking for blessings on my temple, my vessel, my soul, my everything, you know, even my vehicle and my items, because I didn't want any, you know, demonic activity taking place and, you know, affecting my items, because that has happened. It happened when last time I went to my friend's event with Tony Spera. My friend, he is like the chauffeur of Annabelle, and he picks her up and moves her. You know, he's also best friends with Tony, and Tony's a good guy. So anyway, when I was at the Annabelle event, I actually, you know, my recorder got wiped out while I was there, and other things that happened as well on the way there that I was not too happy about, and that night. So this situation is similar in a different way. So I go to the museum, right? And I do this session, and they know that I'm thinking about all of this protection. They know how I feel. I start to feel a little bit of a heaviness. You know, I start sensing actual negativity coming from... Angels, Protector in the A, what do you have to say before I go into Zach's museum?
Angels, Protector in the A, what do you have to say before I go into Zach's museum?
Negativity coming from the building. So I'm like, okay, he's definitely got some stuff in there. It was, you know, kind of like a dark vibe for sure, and it seems he intended it to be that way as well. Nothing wrong with that. It's important to show the truth behind objects, you know, especially haunted artifacts and things like that, because a lot of people don't take those things seriously. Most people do not understand exactly how demons and devils work. You must understand that they are beyond time. They are ancient. They are pure evil. They only seek destruction and chaos, especially to humans. We're in the middle of a holy war, and even the Bible speaks of this, and I have proved this with my communication. A lot of objects can harbor a great evil, and you just may not know it until later. Demonic activity may not arise from an object that you purchase until months to years later, and it can be extreme. And, I've seen it ruin a lot of people's lives. Demons and devils attack when they want to, when they seize the perfect opportunity. It is not something to be taken lightly. So think about this for a moment. Are you willing to purchase items off of eBay, such as a Dybbuk box with claimed curses on it, or claimed demons, etc.? Are you willing to bring these items into your home? Items that could possibly harbor evil, and evil of different kinds. Think about it this way. What if cults, satanic cults, are doing satanic rituals on items and placing them on eBay, and people who don't believe or are curious purchase these items, bring them into their homes? That right there opens up a doorway to invite in any entities that you may encounter in the future, or whatever may be connected to the item you purchased off of eBay. They could have killed people or animals around these objects, as well as tried to summon and call forth Lucifer, the devil, or any kind of other legion of demons. I am not stating or judging. I am not stating that I am against the act of purchasing these cursed or demonic or even simply spirit-haunted items online or from individuals, especially if you want to solve the myth or mystery behind the object or the artifact. I'm fully supportive of experimenting and finding answers by these means. I am just simply trying to help others who are naive in the field, or a novice, or just don't have any knowledge on these artifacts, trying to help people understand exactly what is behind some of these objects and motives of satanic worshipers and things like that, because I have seen a lot of people on YouTube and other make these artifacts out to be a joke and claim there is nothing bad that can happen to you in regards to these items based off of a 24-hour or 2-day experiment, and placing love music and things like that behind the actual element of the object, which is evil intent. And a lot of satanic worshipers will trick people this way, especially skeptics, and will be able to get the artifacts into their homes, and then their life becomes ruined. Even like Dybbuk boxes and things like that. So I get to the museum and I meet this man named Angry Joe, and he's so nice, and we talk about Zach and how close he is with him and stuff like that, and he's a really funny guy. And he actually thought I was a new hire. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you look so nice. I thought, that you were working here for Zach or something." And I said, "Oh, no, I'm just here visiting." And, he had approached my truck and set this outside of the gates. But when I walked in, I spoke to him again in regards to, going through the museum and Zach, and told him about my investigations and things like that with Nick Groff and Steve Gonzalez and Elizabeth Saint, all of them. Well, so I, So I So I walk into the doors of the museum. They do not allow anyone in there until you are ready to walk through and tour the museum. So I'm in there, and I'm just kind of looking at things and waiting to walk through, and Zach's on TV talking, and there's these other little artifacts. So we then begin the tour, and one of the women, the very first woman, there's a different person for like every room to every 2 rooms. And she's like, "Are there any ghost hunters here?" And I just, I'm kind of laughing, like, okay. And I'm like looking around at the like 10 or 11 other people. And so I'm looking around and no one says anything. I'm like, oh, I hope it's not like a problem for them, because I know that some people who ghost hunt can be, disrespectful and things like that. So, but I tell her, I was like, I'm a demonologist, and I work in all of this. She tells everyone, okay, no photos, no film, no nothing, or we'll have to have you leave. And which is understandable with some of the things that are in there. It shouldn't be on social media whatsoever. So there were many rooms that we went through, and there was the first room was interesting, and it was connected to Zach Bagans' personal doll collection that he had, which was interesting. So the room after, going through and hearing about these different artifacts and like the little mansion dollhouse and things like that, that was fun and interesting. We go to the next room, which is a poker room, and he has like Wyatt Earp's original Bible in there. He has the Devil's Poker table, where they showed me footage of the ball that just like flew off, rolled off, something like that. It completely defied gravity. There was no way of it being able to do this. He said the poker table also that this ball was sitting on was named the Devil's Poker table. So all the numbers added up to 666 on it. And so the other thing is, anyone who would bet on it would always lose, no matter what. There was something attached to it that would cause bad things to happen, and you always to lose your money. So the next room we went in was the doctor's room, and they had things in there, and they showed me some footage of a woman. So they had a group in there, and the surveillance system was running, and they showed me footage on this. So on the surveillance footage, there was a small group of people, maybe like 10 people, and there was a tour guide, and she was explaining what the artifacts were in this room, what they were connected to, and things like that. As she's explaining this, there's a woman in the center, and she just falls over, just bam, hard. It was hard. I mean, it was just, she just went straight to the ground. And the other people who were in the room, kind of became upset. So they kind of get everybody out of there. Another person who works at the museum comes in, and they're, she comes to at this point. She wakes up, and she's on the ground, and she starts screaming, ah! Ah! Just like, oh my God. And then she's like, she's really, really upset. And she's seen something, and they're trying to look, and they're like, what is she seeing? So she sees something that scares the living hell out of her. And this goes on for a couple minutes at least. They couldn't get her off the ground. It was intense. She was extremely upset. I mean, this woman was screaming at the top of her lungs and hyperventilating very, very badly. So we go into the next room with the van, and, I speak to some folks in there, and they ask me what I'm picking up on, and I kind of see something over in the corner behind the van, and, then it just kind of becomes like at ease. But another woman becomes very dizzy, and she starts overheating. It was warm in that room. However, she had to leave, and she had to go sit down. Let's see, the next thing. So we go into another room with the blood painting and some teeth and other things like that. So we go down the hallway, okay, the corridor, and over to my left are the stairs to the basement. And And as I'm walking towards it, I feel a very heavy negative feeling. I don't feel good. I actually start to become nauseous. And I'm like, okay, I know what this means. There's something over there. It can probably see my light. If there all these other spirits and entities can see my light, I know this specific thing, whether it's a demon or a devil, something very evil, can see it as well. And I look down there. I'm looking down there, and I see something. The door is open to the basement, and I see something kind of move by, and then it backs up, and it's just a big black figure. And so I turn over to the woman who is kind of guiding this tour of the museum. So I ask her if anyone ever goes down there, if any at all. And she said, Zach's had a lot of really bad experiences down there, and a lot of the people who work here, we don't like to go down there. Nobody really ever goes down there except for Zach. And I'm like, okay. I kind of wanted to go down there. I needed to know. I know that there's been experiences of water, of a liquid substance being flung at people in their eyes and their face, some of Zach's friends, as well as, the woman that was standing there was completely bombarded and overwhelmed with tears, and something was messing with her. And I'm just becoming a little bit more and more nauseous standing next to these stairs. I just don't like it. We go into the barn room, we go over the cursed cauldron, things like that. And so, which is right next to the stairs. And then so we come out of out of the barn room, and I'm like, oh, I still feel it again. I'm like, I feel it right there. So I kind of look over, and I'm like, looking down there, and I'm by myself right here. People are up ahead of me, and as I walk away, I felt like something kind of came out of that doorway down those stairs a little bit. And as I feel this, I'm walking away from the stairs. So the stairs are at my back at this point, and I'm standing directly in front of them. So I stop, I turn around, and I look down there, and I see something black and dark. And I look a little bit harder at it. And then I see what looked like an evil hag's face, like the outline and shape, deformities, very grotesque. It wasn't good, and there was a black hood as well. And whatever it is not good. And I felt like it was attached to the building, or maybe something inside the walls down there. I'm not really sure what's down there, but that's what I was picking up on. I'm like, I instantly start blessing and doing all this stuff to make sure it doesn't affect me anymore or any further, follow me, anything like that. And we go down another hallway, and that's when I see the doll, of the little girl who her father was killed, and she ran out. She had her doll with her, and blood got all over the doll's dress, and it was still on there. And I'm kind of listening to this, but I'm feeling stuff really heavily in this area, and I'm only about maybe 15-20 feet, if that, from these stairs at this point. So, we kind of go over all these little artifacts and whatnot, all these little things, these big bookshelves, and just filled with stuff. And I'm having a hard time focusing and listening to the woman speak about these items, because I just keep looking over at the stairs, because I felt at that point that this thing had come up the stairs, and there's a wooden railing, and was sitting there or standing there just looking at me. And I'm like, oh God, no, this needs to stop. And I'm like, oh, it's perfect, because I just, I don't like them, and they don't like me. So it's not always a good situation to be in. So anyways, we go into another room, and there's quite a few interesting things in here. There's Michael Jackson stuff from the Poltergeist girl, certain wedding dresses that are important to know about. And so, there's, there's like certain, it's all celebrities. They have the 666 shirt, they have Michael Jackson stuff, they have pill bottles and passports and licenses from certain individuals. You'll have to go see it to know who I'm talking about. And but one specific thing that I was very drawn to and walked right over to and was taken back by was the photo of Chris Farley from the case. It was like the first photo of him, where he lie dead. Blood everywhere, blood on his face. His whole head was just a dark shade of purple, the way he was laying there. It was awful seeing that. I've seen stuff like that, but it's always different when you see something like that of someone you cared about. And I always loved Chris Farley. And I know that he overdosed, but it just didn't seem, the way that it looked was bad. And this is the original photo taken when they had discovered him in his deathbed, so to speak. So I felt a great heaviness from that as well, and I really looked at that, and that was right underneath the poltergeist items from the little girl. Those are really interesting objects as well. So we head out from this room and a bookcase opens and scares a lot of the younger folks that are kind of right there in the front. I stayed back by myself, and there's these fangirls, and they're up there and they're constantly getting spooked and scared and jumping, and it was really cute. And so we go through this bookshelf that opens, and that's where the big huge table is that you've seen on Zach's episodes, and then there's stairwells and all these other rooms, and it was really beautiful, dark but very beautiful. I loved it. I loved that room. Upstairs to this circus room, and there's a circus room, and then after that there's a clown room, and we go upstairs through there, and so this is where it gets really interesting. We're in this very dark, what was that? Oh, I heard that. So this is where it gets really interesting. We're in this very dark, what was that? Oh, I heard that. What was it? So this is where it gets really interesting. We're in this very dark, what was that? Oh, I heard that. So we're in this really, really dark room. It's very dark. Oh, goodness. And there's 3 specific rooms connected to it before we go down these other stairs. So as we're coming up these stairs, you can clearly hear a spirit box running in one of the rooms. Not a lot coming through once we're actually up there and we're just kind of hanging out for a moment. You can kind of hear stuff start coming through, but it's through a door. It's in a very small room, in a very enclosed space. And so she says, you don't have to go in there, any of you, but you're welcome to go in there and use the spirit box that Zach has running and communicate with this doll. So I believe it was Peggy the doll, and the story with this and why Zach wanted it was because there's some kind of demonic entity that shows itself when it manifests as a child, as a little girl. And when it does, bad things start to happen and people die. So people would take pictures of this entity in the form of a little girl, and they would put it on social media. People started dying, getting sick, who would look at it. Couple people had heart attacks after that. It was 30 something people, I believe, and that's when it was brought to his attention, and he had to know more about the doll and see what happened. And so nobody wants to go into this room, right? And I'm instantly I'm going in there. I do this stuff all the time, and in my head I'm I've taken proper measures to stay protected. I know how to approach the situation. So I go in there, and then a couple people actually follow me after. They're like, okay, well, Emilia's going in there. She's a demonologist. I feel safe with her. I'm going to go in with her. So, several of them wind up coming in, and then the tour guide closes the door. And so I begin speaking to it. It's really loud, this spirit box. And I'm like, hello, I'm Emilia. And it says, hello. It says other things. And it was a male voice. And then I say, I'm a demonologist. How do you feel about that? And it starts screaming things. And then a female voice comes through and starts screaming things. And even the other guests that were there were like, whoa, all at the same time, because they were kind of more spooked by this stuff, because you could tell that they were obviously not used to encountering these kinds of situations and this kind of atmosphere. And I think they were really into the moment, as well as really being able to experience what it's like with someone who can communicate and knows what they're doing. And so, I then say, can you see the entities that are with me? And I'm speaking in regards to the 8, the angels, and my protector, and the other, holy individuals that are with me as well, beings of light. And it really starts yelling. And one guy at this point, he's like, okay, I'm done, I'm getting out of here, because it scared him so bad. And then a couple people followed, and I continued. I was like, what did I say? Oh, I said, I can sense you, and I can feel you, and I know that you're there, and I don't really like dark things. And then at that point, it gets even louder, and things start, yelling through, and the people are like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. And so we all kind of, they all come out of the room, and then I kind of go out of the room. So the next room we go to is the witch room, and that one was pretty dark, and there was a really bad feeling on the objects that I saw in there. And after that, we step out of this room. And so I'm on the left, and all the people are kind of over to my right, back down the corner of the hallway, and the tour guide is diagonal for me, and she's talking to all of them. And I'm looking over, and I'm looking in the dark, right where that room with the doll is, and I see something about 4 feet tall, crawling, kind of back and forth and up and down, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, oh, I see that. And so I'm like, I'm curious. So I look over at the tour guide, and I look over at the guests, and they are not noticing any of this, And so I look back over at this entity, and it was kind of deformed looking. I didn't like it, and it lunges at me. It goes from 5 feet and shoots over at me, and I actually jump and was startled by it, because I cannot stand it when these things do that to me. And so I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want anyone else to see me getting upset like this. They're trying to listen, and she's talking, and I'm like, so I'm like, stop, you stop, you right now. And because I didn't like this thing, and I think it came from that doll out of that room. And so it's kind of backed up a little bit, and it fades away, and I'm like looking around, and I just keep looking over there, because I still feel it there. And even though I can't see it at this point, well, it comes back, I see it, and it's just like coming towards me, and I tell it to stop. Mentally, psychically, I'm like communicating with this. I'm like, no, you need to back up now. And it does. And so I'm like, nobody else still sees anything or is experiencing this. So I reach down, and I start feeling to see right where I could see it, right where I knew that it was. And, I kind of bend over, because it's way down there, and it was ice cold. And prior to that, I felt a breeze. I did feel it go, and this place is kind of warm. The museum is a little warm. this could have been a breeze. So I'm like, I'm going to feel and touch exactly where I know this entity is and see if it's ice cold. And it was ice cold. So after this happens, I'm just like, okay, now activity is picking up. Now things are happening. I notice that the further we get inside the museum, the darker, more evil the rooms and the artifacts become. So I am heading into the next room, which I got a very, very bad feeling from. Very bad at this point. And when I go in to this room, it is actually called the torture room. And this is where this man, horrible evil man, I hated this room. They had the bed in there, and you'll know what the bed is. So this horrific evil man was kidnapping other men, raping them, torturing them, doing horrible things. He would get the cotton balls, and they had some of them in a casing, and put ammonia, and he would rub it on their eyes to cause them to go blind. He had these big, huge syringe needles in their backs. The photos showed these men on their stomach on this bed, this metal bed, with their wrist behind them tied to, I think it was their ankles or their legs or something. It was really, really bad. And I just got such an evil, horrible feeling in this room. This was just such a horrific room. There was his longest victim. He had, I think it was 6 weeks, up to 6 weeks. And he raped them and stuff, obviously, but he was forcing his victim to give him oral. Well, his victim actually bit his genitalia, and the evil man had to get medical care for it. It was so bad, and he would go back and beat the hell out of this guy all the time, every night, and I mean, it was just horrible. This man was horrible. I hated that room. He would electrocute his victims, like with it in their mouths and everything, up to 7,000 volts, maybe more. It was really, really bad. So we go downstairs, down a different flight of stairs, and we wind up in the room with the devil's chair from the Warrens case that they had, the exorcism case. We heard some of the exorcism as well. I've heard these things before. I actually have files of them. I have the Annalise one as well. It's not something normal individuals should listen to. It really takes a lot of experience and things like that to get up to that point, to hear something that unnatural and evil coming from a human. Even Lorraine in the video the audio was extremely upset. This thing, just it's horrific noises, and she was like, "You need to stop, get out of this person now." It was just really bad. And so we go to the next room, and it's this woman who was being possessed, had evil entities coming after her. Nobody believed her. At one point, she even called her family. She said, "They're coming for me. They're coming for me. They're gonna get me. Please help me." And they didn't believe her. They just hung up on her. And so she started documenting it. She had all these Polaroid photos, and those were all posted. And it's just, you can definitely tell she was very sick from the demonic attacks, the diabolical situation that she was in. It was really brutal on her. She was writing down the conversations with them, the things that she could hear them saying to her, what was happening to her. I was reading a lot of that, and it was really in detail. Pretty incredible stuff there. There's more to the story, but she wound up dying. They found her sitting in a chair where she had, I guess, communication equipment running, because nobody would help her, so she was trying to figure out, what to do. I mean, it was severe, though. It was severe. I mean, but they found her, and she was just sitting there dead, and all the equipment was still on. The next room, there was a Titanic room. There was also the cursed, chair room with, real actual skeletons in it, all kinds of stuff. But we finally get to an area to where we're in this room. And I'm literally, as I walk through the doorway of this room, my hand, I feel it right here the most on my index finger, swells. And I mean swells to where it looked really swollen and it hurt. So I'm like squeezing my hand constantly like this, and it's down on my side, and I'm just squeezing it, squeezing. I'm like, oh, this hurts. Maybe I need to sit down. And we, I'm not paying attention to anyone talking or doing anything. I'm just like dealing with my hand. And then I look up and look around. I see information on the Dybbuk box. And I'm like, oh, the Dybbuk box is not in here, but she's talking about it. But I see a door behind her. So she says, you don't have to go in here. She explains about the fatal plane crashes and the car accidents, famous people and other people have gotten into that were with Zach, and showed me footage of Zach and these people in the room with the orbs and things like that. And, his friend pulling Zach, by the shoulder out of this room with the Dybbuk box. So after I watched the footage and all this stuff, I'm like, okay. She tells everyone, you do not have to go in, but in this door, as soon as I open it, the Dybbuk box will be directly in plain sight, in view, right in front of you. You will be able to see it. And I say, and so she, and so she tells anyone who's there, feel free. You do not have to walk in here. Serious things have happened. These actual things do happen, and you can skip over this, whatever, so be it. So everyone's kind of nervous. I'm still in the back, in the corner, squeezing my hand, trying to make the pain stop. Well, they all go through, and I turn around, and they're like in. I'm like, oh, I need to go through here. I want to see the Dybbuk box. I've always wanted to see that. I've followed that story for years. Kind of tracked all the details and different things, and, what made sense and what correlated and intertwined with the Dybbuk box cases, experiences, stories, all the phenomena, everything. So I walk through the doorway, and it's kind of a little bit of a tunnel, and then it opens up to the room, and the Dybbuk box is right in front of me. There's no one in front of me. There's no one behind me except a man who's several feet behind me. He stays in the back. He's in his suit. He stands there. He's very proper. I guess he's there kind of like security. And so he's several feet behind me. And I go through. The second she opened that door, though, and I notice this, my head, right here in this temple, I get shooting pains that go through my head. And it was so bad, I'm like this. Right? And so I'm like, oh, and I turn around, the door's open, everyone's gone through it. And so I go through it, and it gets worse. Okay, this pain. Right at the end of this, short corridor hall area before it opens up to the room, this is about, 5 feet, I'd say, if that. Something grabs my right hip and squeezes it. And then the pain stopped, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a protector or a guardian or an angel or one of the celestial entities that are with me, or if it was something in regards to the Dybbuk box, or just another entity roaming the building. It squeezed it pretty damn hard, though, my hip. So I was like, okay. I turn around, I look, there's no one there. There's nothing there. I'm like, what? So I look at the Dybbuk box, and I look at it, and I don't feel good about it. I definitely don't. So being in the presence of the Dybbuk box has been quite the experience. And I felt a darkness. I felt evil. I felt an unsettling feeling with, shooting pains through the stomach and shooting pains through my temple when I sat there just like this. And I looked right at it. There's definitely very dark, thick energy inside and surrounding that Dybbuk box. So after we leave, we go to the demon house room. When I walked in there, there were walls, okay? It was all black. They had a crucifix on the ceiling. The only room in the entire mansion out of many rooms that had a crucifix on the ceiling. Watch a little video on Zach. He wants to explain it to people who have never, I guess, known any knowledge on his demon house case and investigation. I knew everything, but I started getting very dizzy and very like lightheaded. My legs started feeling very heavy. I'm over in the back right hand corner. To my left is the door, 5 to 7 feet away. And then all the people are in front of me, and it's a very tiny space. Very, very tiny. I mean, we're like this close to each other. And I'm experiencing this. I'm like, oh, you know, and even before I knew it was the demon house room with the stairs and artifacts and dirt, I had the feeling that it was the goat demon's room. So after they watch the, you know, short video explaining some details from the demon house case, the tour guide comes back in, and she, you know, they let down the walls, okay? And I could see the dirt from the house. I could see, you know, I could see the dirt from the demon house. The objects that they dug up in that dirt under the stairs in that basement, and the stairs. I looked right over at those stairs. So you have the stairs and then the actual demon house stairs, and then the artifacts. And my recorder, my DR60, were in my blouse, just in case I need them for something or some reason. And I actually felt something after a minute. There were only a few people left in the room with me, and they were kind of talking a little bit. I felt something heavy, and I look over and I don't see anything there. I don't know what it was, but something very heavy went by the stairs. And then I felt a tap on my recorder. And I'm like, well, you know. So I look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's on. You know, it's not supposed to be on. I don't want to offend or upset anyone that works here, and, you know, or go against the rules or anything like that. That's disrespectful. So I turn it off real quick. And this is what I got. Yeah. And so I'm like, I definitely felt a darkness, a very evil darkness. I felt 3 of them specifically. The one on the stairs, the demon house room, and the Dybbuk box room. So on my way home, I'm about 16 hours from home. I'm driving through the middle of nowhere. There's not a gas station for miles. And the moon is beautiful. And it's right before Friday the 13th. And I think it actually became Friday the 13th at some point that night. So I'm driving, and I feel this presence in the back seat behind my passenger seat, and it's a male. And then all of a sudden I hear a male speak, and he said, like, I couldn't make out what he said, but it sounded like it was like lost her, or it was like lost her, or lost her. It was something like that. And I turned back there, I look in my rear view, and I'm like, oh, I heard you. And then I was reminded, I saw something on the way to the museum. So everyone have a blessed evening, and we will continue more stories in the next film. I have an incredible Halloween session coming up in a Halloween room. That'll be interesting because I have some really fun questions to ask personally for myself, and then I have some stuff about some really dark topics regarding Halloween that I want to ask. So that'll be coming up this week. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.